on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JohnnyVTV Live. We have another great show. We have week 3 best bets with myself, as well as my co-host, my guy, Andrew Caley. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well away from home right now, doing a little wedding planning. So it's been a little crazy, but excited to talk some football with you, buddy.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait. So, I guess before we get into week 3, let's start off with the reactions to week 2. Who or what stood out to you?
Week 2, the biggest reactions I had, I was shocked by the way that the Chiefs choked away a game last week, and that was something that really stuck out in my mind. I was shocked about how bad Washington's defense was in that early game against the Giants. I thought that defense was going to be much better than they were. But I think the most surprising team I've seen so far right now has been the Oakland Raiders. They beat the Ravens in week 1. Then they go into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers. Derek Carr's looked great. He's got a ton of weapons at his disposal right now. I really like Brian Edwards and Henry Ruggs out wide to support Darren Waller. If he's healthy, obviously he's a little banged up right now, but if he goes this weekend, Vegas is feeling it right now, and that home crowd there is just like we saw with the Golden Knights in their first run. They're nuts there. Hopefully they listen to Carr a little better when he starts telling them to be quiet. Last time they were just yelling the whole time, and they weren't hearing their own hot reads on offense. So hopefully they can listen a little better this time around.
Absolutely, man. You know what? Vegas, dude, you got to give credit where it's due. I mentioned this the other day. They got very fortunate to even beat Baltimore week 1, but then they come out on the road on a short week going against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, a lot of people had the Steelers just absolutely throttling the Raiders. So you got to give credit where it's due. They're in a great spot. Derek Carr looks like he's going to suit up on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins, who we're not going to have Tua starting. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett, and they looked lost against the Bills. And I heard it this week. The Bills had maybe the most unimpressive 35-point victory ever. Like, they pitched a shutout, and it wasn't good. It was a lot of Miami making mistakes, and it's just like, listen, it's so hard in any position, but especially as a quarterback, to come in and have to be forced to handle the responsibilities. You obviously prepare, but you didn't prepare to be the starter. So you're thrust into a role that you really aren't ready for. You're not getting practice with the first teams. So there's no reason to think Vegas can't come out and just shellac them again. It looks like Josh Jacobs is going to be sitting out, so it's going to be Kenny Drake, Peyton Barber, Darren Waller, the absolute target hog, getting probably 15 looks against this Miami defense. So it's great to see. It's great to see the Raiders, man. I really didn't see them doing that much this year. I took them under 7 wins or 6.5 wins because I thought they were going to be like a 6-11 type of team. Said maybe 7-10, something like that. So it's really good. I would say my biggest surprise. I can't even say it's a surprise, man. Like, I understand where you're going with the Chiefs. But how does Seattle blow a 2-touchdown lead? Like, I know they keep teams in it. This is why I went with the Titans plus 6.5, which hit. And I'm sore about this. Seattle was the last leg of my teaser last week, and it was right at the finish line. And Russell Wilson does what he does best. He just hands the game over to somebody else. And, there goes my teaser.
That's what they do, man. You said it, though. They leave teams in games too long, and that's just another example of that. And it burned a lot of people, I think.
Brutal, man. And like, honestly, who knows though? Julio Jones got robbed. Like, if there's one guy that doesn't need to get robbed in the end zone, it's Julio Jones. Like, he's had a tough go of it in the end zone. He got a great game, 6 for $128. It realistically probably should have been like 7 for $140 and a tutty. Like, it was clearly a touchdown. And the NFL,
that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen.
Worst. What makes it worse is they called it a touchdown in real time, and then they go back, review it. It's clearly he has his left foot down, control, and he taps his right toe, or it might have been his left. It might have been vice versa, but he taps his second foot.
You could see the green between the foot.
Yeah, and they go back and they change the call. And it's just like the NFL refuses to acknowledge their poor officiating. They want to crucify and penalize everybody else when, bro, their officials need to be dealt with. Like that's a game-altering play. I mean, it didn't matter for Tennessee, but like, bro, that's something that it's not always going to come back to not matter. You know what I'm saying? So that's a problem. So
yeah, for sure.
The reactions, and then we touched on our biggest surprise here. So getting ahead of it for week 3, Caley, what's the matchup you're looking forward to the most for this week?
We talked about the Chiefs there for a second there, but it's the Chiefs and the Chargers. I'm stoked to see Justin Herbert face off against Patrick Mahomes. I think it could be a really exciting game. I don't know the total. The total is a reasonable, if you think about these two teams, 54.5. I don't think I'd touch it either way because like last week, everyone was sure that the Chargers and Cowboys were going over that total last week, and then they just didn't. I'm not sure why. Obviously, the Chargers got a little screwed over by the officials too. They had at least 2 touchdowns taken off the board, I would say. That said, I'm really excited to see this quarterback matchup. I love Mike Williams right now. I think he is going to turn into a really big player for the Chargers. That defense looks a lot better now that Derwin James is healthy, and it's going to be interesting to see Kansas City, a 7-point favorite again, but they just can't cover spreads anymore. It's been their biggest issue. They win a lot of games, but they're just not covering the spreads, and it doesn't help that they're such a publicly bet team as well.
So it's funny you say that, and that's one thing, and I actually alluded to this earlier in the week on Tuesday on the show. I love the Chargers it was plus 6.5, throw them in a teaser at plus 12.5. Now there's been enough of late action to give it the extra half a point, which is huge. That 7 is huge because that's a touchdown in the field goal. That's a big half a point. That half a point's pretty much as big as they come. I'm supposing that the bet percentages or the public bets have started to even out a little bit more because earlier in the week it was more in the mid-70s in terms of public bets on the Chiefs. So there's probably a little bit of sharp money coming in on Kansas City to get this number back up to 7. But I got to be honest, man. The Chiefs, they haven't covered a spread, like you said. They haven't covered a spread in 4 straight games. They're 1-11-1 against a spread in their
1-11-1?
In their last 13. It doesn't.
I didn't realize it was that bad. That's bad.
I guess it really depends, I guess, where you it might include postseason too, but it really depends, I guess, where you're getting your lines from. But I mean, when we look at it, man, the Chiefs do own the Chargers. They beat them 12 in their last 14 matchups. Mahomes is 4-1 against Kansas City, 10 tutties to 2 picks. Kansas City on paper, it looks good, right? They've won 27 of their last 32. They're 20 of 23 against the AFC, or their last 23. 45-13 straight up in their last 58 games. Mahomes off a loss, 6-2 straight up, 5-3 against the spread. Now, here's the problem. And I'm completely taking the divisional games out. LA does not look like a team that scored only 37 points. They've had some, and only LA can have this. They've had some bizarre turnovers, very bizarre turnovers, and awful ticky-tack penalties called against them. Against Dallas last week, they probably had 3 or more 30-plus yard penalties called back on them. Justin Herbert looks fantastic for the most part. He's averaging like 338 yards per game. Like he's being very consistent. It's just in the red zone, you would think this team should be scoring more than 37 points in their first 2 games. And quite honestly, they should. It's just not going their way. That doesn't last forever. Keenan Allen is looking like a savage, looking like a top 5 receiver. Mike Will made it finally coming into his own. I know that's your boy. I've always been big on Mike Will. Eckler got back into the swing in the receiving game. So I really like LA. I ultimately think they fall short in this one, but I don't see it being unreasonable that they get him back later in the season in LA. I think the Chiefs win this one. But I don't think it's more than a 3-point game, maybe 4 at the most. I could see it being Kansas City 31-28, 31-27. I think the total could probably touch 60. This is going to be an exciting one, man. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. What's your favorite? What's your favorite?
So I know, but listen, I get it, man. You're committed to the grind, man. You're on the road this week.
I am. We're getting married, like I said, and at my fiance's parents' place, and I'm just doing a makeshift studio right now. So, and it's falling apart on me, which is hilarious.
I wish I
live TV for you right now, gentlemen.
I wish I snip tooled the your face when you were trying to fix it.
Okay, what's your favorite one of the week? What are you looking for?
I gotta say, man, the biggest reason is the team that took it home for me last year when I preseason bet them versus the team I picked this year preseason to take it home for me now. Bucs Rams. It's the game of the week. It's probably an NFC Championship preview. The Rams are, well, now I guess the Buccaneers, it just flipped. Buccaneers are -1 point favorites, over-unders 55.5. So here's the deal. We know what Tom Brady and the offense has done. They've scored 30 or more points in 9 straight games when you include the postseason. They have looked like a different team since that Kansas City loss last year. They got on a heater after they lost to Kansas City at home, not in the Super Bowl. The thing is, though, this is one of those matchups that I mentioned earlier this week, and I've talked about it through the first couple weeks of the season, even late in the preseason. The Buccaneers have struggled last season 5 times, lost 5 games in the regular season. All four of those 5 losses, with the exception of the Kansas City game, they were the more physical teams. You look at the Saints twice, the Rams with Jared Goff, and the Bears. Those are teams that came straight at them, dive right into the trenches, come right up Brady up the middle. That's what they struggle with. Now, I understand that this is a different team, but when you really look at it, the Rams, they didn't get any worse. They only got better. They upgraded. They upgraded at quarterback. That's a big one. Their defense really didn't have too many losses or key losses. And like I said, I do understand that Tampa Bay's better, but I just find it hard to believe that everybody's so against LA. People think they're so overhyped. I mean, if you look at it, listen, they're 20-14-2 against the spread in their last 36 games. They had a much worse quarterback playing 19-13-2 against spread since 2019. And, Cooper Kupp, the first wide receiver of the Rams to have 100-plus yards and a touchdown in back-to-back games. And he's got back-to-back 100-yard performances. It just – there's so many numbers that are going to be contradicting. But at the end of the day, I like LA, man. I picked them preseason. Here's what I'll say. LA can lose this game, and if they do in the regular season, I think it's almost a certainty they beat them in the postseason. But if they beat the Bucs this week, I still think that they'll edge it out in the postseason. What about you, Kelly?
That's you're getting to something there. This game means something to the Rams. Like, it's about proving that these moves they made was worth it. Like going out and getting Stafford was worth it. And the Bucs are off to a hot start. Like, Tom Brady might win an MVP at 44 years old, which is insane. But do they care about this game in the long run? No, they don't. Like, it's are they going to risk Tom Brady getting run over by Aaron Donald if that's the case at some point in this game? No, they're not going to do that. I know Tampa Bay has a great offensive line as well, but they're not gonna give away too much to the Rams here either. I think they know that they're going to see the Rams, or have at least the potential to see the Rams later. Bruce Arians is not going to throw his best stuff at LA in this one. So the Rams have way more to play for. The Bucs are like, if we win, we can win. We're certainly good enough to win. If we don't, though, I don't think they're gonna be too stressed about it. It'll just be put it in the back pocket and move forward sort of thing. So what I really like in this game, though, I'm going to be the schmuck that takes the under here. Like, everyone's on the over. And I think we're up to 55.5. It's just an absurd number. Like, obviously it's deserved because of the offenses in the game, but this is 2 really good defenses, and I think they're going to step it up. And at least in the first half, we're going to see a low-scoring first half, I would say. So maybe even something like more would be the first half under in this game. I just think that when good teams play against each other, you don't get those same high scoring events that we're used to.
You know, it's so funny, man. I honestly tend to agree with you here because when you look at it, I could follow both teams not really running their high-powered plays and their gadget plays. They're going to keep it like the Ravens. I want to say they keep it like the Ravens did in week 1 against the Raiders, most likely. Very vanilla, not showing it anything for Kansas City. Kind of the same thing here, except they're playing their opponents because they know these teams are going to be seeing each other down the road. So, but I would say Tampa Bay probably cares about this game a little bit less because they're the Super Bowl champs. They're in a division that 10 wins is probably going to get it done for them. I mean, Carolina, maybe they're the surprise, but LA needs to keep pace because you got teams like San Francisco, you got the Cardinals that are a surprise right now, and you got the Seahawks that you can't fall asleep on, especially this early in the season. But I do think the Rams ultimately come out of this one. I do think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a surprising, maybe like a 24-21 type of game. I think it's a field goal decided. I don't think it's that high scoring. I think a lot of people are over expecting like a 70-point total, like a 35 to 30 to 34, 35, 32 total. Like I personally don't see it because honestly, these defenses are very, very good, and I just don't see them coming out with the wrinkles. But I'll say this, and it's just bizarre to be saying it this early. This is going to go a long way in the MVP race this year. Stafford is my guy coming into it. But before the season, I think you saw my tweet on it that I was like, hey, listen, like Brady at plus 1,200, I'd love to throw some value on there.
Value.
Because exactly. Now he's down. You got to hope Brady has a couple bad weeks, but I think that 1,200's long gone. I didn't end up pulling the trigger on it, but I mean, when you look at it, I've been saying it all summer. Year 2 is when quarterbacks click in Bruce Arians' system. 2015 Carson Palmer is a perfect example.
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of our final matchups, we touched on 2 great games, and I guess to round it out, man, how you feeling about the Seahawks-Vikings game?
I don't want to touch that game at all. That's like 2 teams that like the Vikings are a disappointment. That defense has just been awful. We talked about how the Seahawks just keep letting teams in games. Russell Wilson makes his offensive linemen lose their hair. Like Tyler Lockett has been great for them so far, but if it's got another one of these super high totals, if there was one of the games that I wanted to bet these high totals, this might be the over, because I just don't see the ability for either team to really stop each other. I think Kirk Cousins. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins guy. We haven't talked much about Kirk Cousins as I've been on this show, but I am definitely not in his camp. But he's got some good weapons. Like Dalvin Cook is going to be great always, and Justin Jefferson's a stud, and even Adam Thielen still gets it done. So I just can't. I don't trust either team in this spot, so I'm not going to bet a side in it. But if there was one of these massive totals I'd have to take over, it might be this one.
Absolutely. If you were going to bet a total out of these 3 games, I would definitely go the over on this one. If you were going to bet it over, I should say. I think this could be probably more in line to what we saw last week with Arizona and Minnesota. 2 defenses that just refused to stop each other. I mean, the Seahawks were cooking in the first half against a putrid Titans defense, and then they took their foot off the gas. That's what Pete Carroll does. Minnesota should have won. I mean, Kyler Murray and that offense, that they're tough to stop. Like I said, man, Kyler Murray looks like Tommy Pickles if he was a real person, like just an absolute rugrat. Like he runs around and just heaves it. Like it's just he's like a miniature sized Michael Vick almost. Like it's outrageous. And I'm not backing the Seahawks. I'm tired of backing Russell Wilson, and he just always is. He's a disappointment in life. He really is. He's like if God came down and bestowed one person unlimited favors and unlimited just luck for the rest of his career, it'd be Russell Wilson. Like this guy has had way more success in the pros than he should have. Like he's a very fortunate quarterback. And anytime I try to ride his wave, boom, I get hit like a tractor trailer. I'll say this, though. Wilson is 34-9 straight up when coming off a loss in his career, 28-12-3 against the spread. But I also highlighted heading into last week, he was 9-0 career in home openers, and look how that turned out. Minnesota, man, Kirk Cousins is balling. He's absolutely shredding it. Jefferson and Thielen haven't even had monster games yet. He's getting everybody involved. KJ Osborne's starting to look good. He's getting about 9 targets a game so far. Dalvin Cook's the big one. We got to see if he plays. But I'm confident Alexander Madison could step into a decent role here. Yeah. I think Minnesota is going to get it done at home. I think they're going to put up probably 31 to 35 points, with Seattle coming up with at least 28 on their own, I would have to say, at the bare minimum. So I think the over hits. I think Minnesota wins. But if you're not comfortable taking the 2, which, by the way, if you like Minnesota, just bet them out right on the money line.
Just go money line.
Don't do +2. It's stupid. But if you don't want to take Minnesota +2, throw them in on a teaser at +8. That's getting it past the key number at 7. And, that one could drive home. But that leads us into our next segment. Hey, John, that was an absolutely great way to segment into us. We got
Wonderful
the Gambling
segue.
Best bet. You messed me up.
I'm
the
sorry.
Best betting trends of week 3, 6-point teasers. We got the Arizona Cardinals -1.5. Listen, this is one of those I try to tell everybody. The public is on Arizona like crazy, and I'm talking crazy like 88-12, 90-10. I don't like that. I really don't. But at the end of the day, the public wins sometimes. It happens. And I know everybody and their mother's betting Arizona the house. But if you look at it, where is Jacksonville going to stop him? Jacksonville's defense is on the field for about 40 minutes a game. Trevor Lawrence is by far the most inaccurate quarterback. He's got a 36% uncatchable rate. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Urban Meyer doesn't want to run the ball. He doesn't believe in James Robinson. He's non-committed to this offense. We talked about it last week. Trevor Lawrence is 0-2 since he's been married. Like, that's a fact. I'm just saying, like, since he got married, Trevor Lawrence is 0-2. Like, just letting everybody know. So I think Arizona should be able to win this game by 2. The 7.5 is something else that I'll touch on Sunday. Next, the Chargers, talk about it. 12.5. If you're going to bet 13, hell to the yeah, because I think this is going to be a 3-point deficit. Justin Herbert, who, by the way, was my pick to lead the NFL in passing yards, he's slinging it all over the yards. I expect probably 320 to 350 passing yards for Justin Herbert, baby-faced assassin. Come out here and put up a big energy game against Kansas City. That's in the teaser. Next, we got the Browns -7. You get them on FanDuel, -7 at -115. Listen, Jarvis Landry done for a couple weeks, MCL injury, and we got Odell Beckham back, but they're a run-first team. They play defense. Justin Fields in his first start, I think he's going to struggle a little bit. He'll make some plays that'll remind you why he's the future, but at the end of the day, he's a rookie quarterback making his first start, and this might be tough against a ferocious front seven of Cleveland, so I think they win by probably 10. Next, we got the Eagles +3.5 at -121 from PointsBet on Monday night against Dallas. Miles Sanders' status up in the air. I don't think that's going to matter that much because Kenneth Gainwell could come in. Dallas is missing DeMarcus Lawrence and a couple other injuries. But at the end of the day, even though as volatile as Philly is, they played a good enough game. They outplayed San Francisco for the most part last week that I truly think that they're going to be the team that not only covers, but I think they flat out win because I don't believe in Dallas. Your Honor, no objections.
No objections. Love it.
Caley, I gotta give you your due, man. What is Andrew Caley's best bets of the week?
So we're gonna start. I have a teaser as well, and I'm tailing you on a couple of these here. I'm also on the Chargers +13. I think we've gone over before. The Chiefs have their issues on defense besides Frank Clark, besides Tyrann Mathieu. That defense has its issues. They're going to have issues covering all the weapons of the Chargers. I think the Chargers keep it close, but I love getting the extra 7 points there, or the other extra 6 points here. So I'm going to take them at +3, and I'm going to tease the Browns down to -1.5 in this matchup. I love Justin Fields, and I think he's going to be really great, but I'm with you on that as well. I really think that he's going to have some issues here. And I don't think it's his fault. I have no faith in Matt Nagy and that coaching staff in Chicago. That defense will keep them in this game for a while. So that's why I'm going to just go with the 1.5 and feel safe there. And finally, I'm taking the over 41.5. So it's a 3-team, 6-point teaser. So you get that at plus 160. So the over 41.5 is the last leg between the Falcons and the Giants. Giants have no defense. Falcons have given up, I think, 80 points in 2 weeks. And to give them credit, they actually put up a bit of a fight against the Bucs last week. Matty Ice showed up a bit, and I think he's going to have a much easier time against a Giants team that just let Tyler Heineke put up 30 points on them. So I teased that down to 41.5, and I think that easily goes over there. So you get all those three together for the plus 160. That's my favorite play of this week.
I love it, bro. But I got to be honest with you, basic logic and
it doesn't matter with the Falcons.
It goes out the window. The Atlanta Falcons, in the history of American sports or just the existence of America, they cease to abide by logic, physics, logic, basic principles cease to exist with the Atlanta Falcons. It's an anomaly. It's truly an anomaly. They're the most unpredictable team, maybe in American sports history. Like, you think they're going to zig, they zag. Like, I don't even know what they're going to do. Like, it's the most wild thing ever, bro. I had to learn this the hard way. It's like, why anything Falcons, it could be like, yeah, man, I could see them going out there putting up 35 this week. Absolutely. But then I could see them be like, hey, you know what? Hey, just kidding. We're gonna put up 14, and we're gonna give up 27. Like,
hey, but that
I hate it.
27 to 4. 27 to, oh, that would just be under by a half point. See, that's
See, and they would do that to you. They would
that's
do
what'll
that to
happen.
you.
They'll land on 41. I predict it now.
They would. But that's not the best part, man. I got to be honest. Like, I like a couple plays this week on the lines and stuff like that. But, man, I'm big in the player props this week.
Let's do it. Let's toss some player props back and forth.
Let's get after it. First off, I mentioned it earlier, Justin Herbert, 286.5 passing yards at minus 114. I highlighted this a little bit earlier in the week, but unfortunately that line's probably gone. It moved up a little bit. Guys, you got to get the props early in the week. It just – a few yards makes a big difference. It really does. Matthew Stafford hit his over last week by 1 yard. Like, it makes a difference. Get these lines early. If you know these guys aren't going to be hurt, boom, just go with it. And we got Kirk Cousins. Talked about it before. 276.5 passing yards. The guy's on fire right now. There's no reason why I'm going to fade Kirk Cousins against a Seattle Seahawks defense that me and you could look like second-team All-Pros on playing the quarterback position. Let's keep it going. We're going to get Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, maybe BDD, Big Daddy Dalvin Cook, straight out the backfield, or Alexander Madison. Love to see it. Next, we have over Stephon Diggs, 6.5 catches at minus 114. Let's try this again. Last week, it fell flat because Josh Allen, he looks terrible. But you know what? Going against Washington, I think there's a realistic expectation that even though their front seven's really good, they don't have any standout corners. Kendall Fuller is probably the best slot corner or one of the best slot corners in football, but Diggs will play in, out, wherever. It doesn't matter. Listen, even going back in their last 17 regular season games, Stephon Diggs is 15-2 on his reception prop bet. I'm taking the over. Let's follow that trend. It's going to be a nice 9-catch day for Diggs. Next, we're going to stay with this trend. Big Daddy Rob Gronkowski, anytime tutty at plus 115. It's pretty good value, by the way. 2 touchdowns is plus 900. He scored 2 touchdowns each in his last 3 games, 6 total tutties in the last 3 games, including the Super Bowl. It's outrageous. Gronk to get in the end zone. That's almost as sure thing as the sun's going to rise tomorrow morning. So I think plus 115 is a pretty good bet. What do you think, Caley?
I like that a lot. I really do. I don't understand what's going on with Gronk right now. I guess he's just relaxing in Florida. He loves that Florida weather, man. It's rejuvenated him, I guess.
It's great down here, bro. It's great down here. I love it down here. I don't want to leave, man.
And Brady doesn't look 44. Good. It's doing something.
He's got a good plastic surgery.
He does.
He's probably got the same plastic surgeon that the Kardashians go to. So I'm not, I'll give him credit for the football. I'm not giving him credit for the looks, man. You're not ugly. You're not ugly. You're just poor.
I love it. Okay, I got some for you too. Mike Williams came through for us last week, so we're gonna go back to the well with him again this week. I'm switching up. Last year we went his yardage. This week we're going receptions over 5.5. He has double-digit targets in both games already this far. He's a beast. He's a huge frame for Justin Herbert to throw to. He's been looking at him a lot. I love that. 8 receptions, 7 receptions, and he's going against a Chiefs defense that hasn't really faced a team with receivers like the Chargers have with him and Allen. And I think he gets there pretty easily. This one, 5.5 is a number I love. Next up for me, I'm taking Devin Singletary to go under 15.5 receiving yards. Unders can be fun too, everybody. Don't take overs on everything. Unders get overlooked too much. He has 17 receiving yards in 2 games this season combined. Zach Moss got back from his healthy scratch, scored 2 touchdowns. They're obviously working both of them more, so his opportunities are a little less. And they're going against a Washington defense with a very good front seven. They obviously, I talked about earlier, they haven't been as good as they expected, but they're still full of a bunch of athletes. And what they do well is they move sideline to sideline like as well as anybody. So those little dump off passes and little screen passes, they don't get burned by those very often. Washington this season has given up only 16 yards receiving to running backs this year. So at 15.5, I think I love that number as well. Another guy I'm going under on is Zach Wilson under his passing yards. It's 211.5 in Denver. Early season trips to Denver never end up well for anybody. I'm really tempted to take the Broncos here with just on the line with Teddy Two Gloves, and we've talked about this. And the Jets have just been basically awful. Zach Wilson is going to have a tough time throwing against a Broncos defense that has only allowed 385 passing yards total through their first 2 games. So 211 is going to be hard in that atmosphere at that altitude early in the season. That Jets team is not going to be ready for that spot, and I think he goes under there. And lastly, I'm going with a Deebo Samuel anytime touchdown. You can get that on DraftKings at about plus 120 right now. He leads the league in receiving right now, which is not something I expected to say early in the season. And he's going against a Packers defense that's given up 7 passing touchdowns already this year. So if somebody's going to get a passing touchdown, I think Deebo is the guy to look at, and I love that plus money value with him.
Great plays, man. Honestly, that Zach Wilson looks good. Denver, early season, it's the altitude game. And honestly, I could see that happening. The Jets are all out of sync, and Denver's got a ferocious defense. They are not a defense to be trifled with. And I forget the number, but in the last 20 years at home in Denver, especially in September, they shut other teams down. It's a combination of, I guess, their talent as well as the altitude. That's a big one. Also, man, I got to give you a lot of props because you really nailed the Thursday slate last night. You had under, you had under Davis Mills. You had, what else you have? You got DJ Moore, Brandon Cooks.
I got the Brandon Cooks catches over just because they had literally, there was no one else. There was nobody. And I missed a couple of props there. I took the Panthers -7.5 early in the week. And but that was pretty sweaty. They looked pretty bad once Christian McCaffrey went out. The offense was just like, well, we don't know what to do anymore. and Sam Darnold was like, he was doing the opposite of seeing ghosts. That's what I was saying. He was holding on to the ball way too long. He had to have that. His internal clock was just awful. And he made that game they ended up covering by a pretty decent amount, but I was sweating it the entire time because Sam Darnold, despite some good numbers, still makes you uncomfortable as ever.
No, dude, absolutely. That was a rough game. But I put up just on my plays, McCaffrey to go over his 82.5 yards, over 5.5 catches. Bro, he was going to smash that, dude. He had 2 catches already. He had almost 30 yards. He came out with 2 minutes into the second quarter. you can't foresee that. That's unfortunate, and hate to see it. Hope he comes back sooner than later. But definitely, man, I'm ready to get after it. Listen, I got my Gambling Guineas weekly taste this weekend. Just a little news flash. I'm going to be live from Gainesville, Florida tomorrow. I'm watching the Tennessee Gators game in person. Might do a little weekly taste from Gainesville just as an FYI. So everybody get ready. I'm going to be putting it all on the slate. And I got a little bit of news for you. This is going to be a little bit bigger on the prop bet side of things. And I might tail Caley, especially on that Zach Wilson under. That looks delicious, as Venom would say. Getting down to brass tacks, our boy Andrew Caley right here. He's picked his Emerge Player of the Night, brought to you by Emerge Sports Group. My boy, my very close friend, J-Hen. Take it away, Mr. Caley.
We're going with Rondale Moore of the Arizona Cardinals. I've been in love with this guy. I remember I watched him. Purdue was playing some random Thursday night football game. I think it was against, who was it? Someone bad as well. It might have been Louisville or something like that. Early season game, his first ever game. He returned 2 kicks for touchdowns and had 2 more receiving touchdowns in that game. And he was one of my favorite players to watch in college football ever since. But since that year, he got hurt, and then there was the COVID year, and he opted out, and he opted back in, and he had a bad year. And he kind of dropped down draft boards a bit. And Arizona looks like they got a goddamn steal in that guy. He has more targets than DeAndre Hopkins right now, and there's a lot of mouths to feed there. But I think another guy to look at for props going forward is this kid, particularly with the way Kyler Murray's playing and AJ Green is back from the dead. It's just a lot of weapons, and he is the guy that moves the most around the field. He is just an electric player, so I think he is a difference maker for them going forward, and I think he will be this week in particular.
It's funny you say that, dude, because I got to be honest, Rondale Moore, he's looking like a special player. I do think a lot of his numbers have come because when you look at it, week 1, they're up against the Titans. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins had 73 yards in the first half. He doesn't even end up getting to 100. Like, that's outrageous, especially for somebody like me who's got him in fantasy. So, he's getting a lot of this second half blowout garbage time targets, which, it still counts in fantasy. It still counts.
Oh, yeah.
And then last week, he didn't do a whole lot except he had an 80-yard touchdown catch on a broken play. Again, it still counts, but like that stuff isn't always necessarily reliable. I will say this, though. Rondale Moore, I remember you highlighted him. That's a great call. I know you said he's your favorite receiver out of this draft class, and that includes one with a talented player like Jamar Chase. And, I mean, this might be the perfect
great
fit in Arizona's air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury calling the shots. This could be like their little Tyreek Hill. He's a guy that he seems more like a gadget player, but at the end of the day, man, he's looking like more than that. He's looking like a guy that could be very special. And listen, the prop bet's not out on him yet, but I got to say, man, I'm looking at Rondale Moore maybe to add in onto the slate this weekend. If Rondale Moore, let's say his numbers, let's say it's in the low to mid-fit, I'd probably play it up to what? What would you say, Kelly? 56.5? 57.5?
Anything under 60, I'd be happy with, I think.
I think so. If you could get Rondale Moore anything under 60 yards, I would definitely give that worth a shot because it's probably going to be like on FanDuel -114 most likely. This kid looks good, man. You probably missed the boat on him in fantasy. He's looking like a true star. So that being said, Mr. Caley, what are your final thoughts heading into the weekend?
So for me, what I've noticed so far is that road dogs have been killing it against the spread. So I think there's something like 13-5 or 14-5 against the spread through 2 weeks of the NFL season. So I'm wondering if home faves are actually going to start picking up and covering some spreads this week. It'll be interesting to see how those trends even out after this week.
Absolutely, dude. The home favorites, it's not really even worth it. I mean, you look at it this week, probably the most notable road dogs, especially the notable road dogs that I'm really looking at. We talked about it. The Chargers. I like the Eagles. I mean, those are the two big ones, I would say. I mean, I think I might be missing one. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Packers are road dog. Like, these are interesting teams, man. They are absolutely looking good. And I got to say, man, I've said this so many times, follow where the public bets are. Case in point could be maybe Arizona. This remains to be seen. I just don't know if I could see Jacksonville keeping up. I mean, maybe they get a backdoor cover late, knock wood. I don't know. But Arizona, with or without Hopkins, should run them out of the building. Arizona should have 30 points with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. If they don't, I will be utterly shocked. Follow that trend. As for my final thoughts, I called out Arizona and Tennessee last week, Green Bay and Tennessee last week. I said, are they going to stand up? They did. Now what I want to see is, how do you respond after having big wins? One was a blowout. One was a thrilling come from behind type of victory. I want to see how these two teams now are going to respond after big wins. Are they going to revert to bad habits? You got a division rival with Indianapolis and Tennessee, and now with Green Bay, you have a tough NFC foe in San Francisco on the road. So wrapping it up here, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at _JohnnyVTV. He's at Caley _covers. Follow me on Instagram at Gambling Guinea and also at JohnnyVTV, where this weekend, tomorrow maybe, I'll be highlighting my best plays of the week live from Gainesville, Florida, from the Tennessee Volunteers and the Florida Gators game. Thanks, everybody. Hope everybody's got a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.